Unfolding Scriptures. My name is KHAI Ben Israel. This is part 2 of In the Beginning, or Better Sheet. So now I'm going to introduce my guest.
I am Elder Shadaniah Ben Israel.
Shalom, Elder.
Shalom.
Shalom. I am Elder Aharon Ben Israel. Shalom.
Shalom, Elder.
Shalom.
I am Obiyahu Ben Israel. Shalom.
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 And as I was saying in my opening statements, this is Unfolding Scriptures, and tonight's topic is In the Beginning, or we're in what's called the book of Genesis. In Hebrew, the word is Bereshit, or the head of the head. And when we left off in the first segment of this two-part series, we were at chapter 1, verse 14.
Exactly.
Okay? And basically we were talking about, well, let me read it. Chapter 1, verse 14 of Genesis. It says, Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And for those who didn't see the first half of the program, we have a chart here that's showing you the course of the moon on a monthly basis from day 1 to day 29 or 30.
Okay.
And we were talking about the fact that it's basically impossible to determine how many days are in a month by a Gregorian calendar, or a calendar that we use on the daily. Because the only way you can determine how many days are in a month, you have to look at the moon every day. And this chart basically is showing you how it's shaded from day 1, which is called a new moon.
That's right.
Okay, which is day 1, and it's shaded from left to right, meaning the darkness moves across from left to right. And as you see it moving across, like day 3, day 4, day 5, you see that the moon is being exposed. But basically, the darkness is moving from left to right. And as you go down to the middle of the month, when you have 14 and 15, you have 2 full moons. Okay? And the first full moon is the end of this first cycle of 14 days, which is called waxing.
Very good.
The 15th day determines the second half of the cycle of the month, which is called waning. And it does the opposite. The shading goes from the opposite from right. I'm sorry. It goes from right to left. Okay?
Okay, on which side you're looking at.
Right, I'm trying to see. So basically what it does, it does the opposite from day 1. And when it starts the 15th day, it does the opposite.
Okay.
And it shades from the other side. So I don't want to get anybody confused. So we were talking about Genesis Genesis 1 and 14, where in the middle of the verse it says, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. This is part of what's the lights that are in the firmament. And right there we were talking about the moon, and how the moon is very important to Israelites and people that are trying to follow Scripture and keeping holy days. And this particular show is about Genesis, but we were touching on holy days. And the only way that you can determine when the holy days come is by the course of the moon.
That's right.
Very good.
Okay? So that's why the Father, in the beginning, this was before Passover was established in the physical on earth. But the Father knew that he had to have a people, or he had to have a select group that would have to deal with his holy days in the beginning. Okay? Because this is how we determine when the holy days come around now.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And see, what happened is that the knowledge or the Holy Scriptures got in the hand of the Gentiles. And the Bible tells us since the times of Nebuchadnezzar was the beginning of the Gentile reign. And when the Gentile began to reign on earth, Daniel 2:21 tells us that, and he changed the times and the seasons. Now this would be the Gentiles, or what we know to be today the Roman Empire, or what we call is the beast. And that's why we have the different days of the week that we do have. Like what we read in Genesis 1:1, it says day 1, day 2, day 3.
Right.
But when the Gentiles got in control, now we have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Right.
Now those different days, those are days that was created by the Roman Empire, and they were to acknowledge their pagan gods, correct?
Yeah.
And that's why we have like Sunday, the day of the sun, Monday, the day of the moon, and we have Thursday with honor Thor, and then we have Wednesday and Friday, which would be god of fertility, and Friday would be her husband, and Saturday would be the day of Saturn. So we have all these days of the week which are named after false gods, but the Father gave us the days of the week in Genesis 1:1, and he named them day 1, day 2, and so forth. So that's why we have the different days of the week, and that's why we don't know the moon, because we've fallen after this westernized or this European type of system.
Yeah.
But like I forgot to put this in. The moon was also used, like you say, for days to divide to tell what day it was. Also,
Right.
okay, and just like people in antiquity used to use what's called a sundial, you could tell by putting an instrument or an object in the middle of a certain area, and the sun would reflect off of it at a certain time, and you could tell what day it was by like a sundial.
Very good.
So these lights that were in the firmament, or these planets, were used specifically for, as I say again in 14, for signs, for seasons, for days and years.
Right.
Basically to determine and measure time. Okay.
Right.
So we also touched on up here in verse 5 of chapter 1, and Elohim called the light day. Now let me go to 3.
Okay.
Verse 3, chapter 1. And Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good. And Elohim divided the light from the darkness. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And as the elders talked about the evening coming before the day, that determined a day. And in Hebrew culture, that's how you still determine a day.
Very good.
So this has never changed. It's just that in this particular culture that we are part of now, it's basically the day comes in the middle of the night.
Right.
And the next day, so to speak, is determined when the sun comes up.
Right.
That's another day. But according to this, that's out of order.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
very good. Let's look. Let me read something real quick in Matthew 28, verses 1. Just to echo off what you said, Brother Clarkiel. It says, "In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sculpture, or to see
Sepulchre.
Yahushua's body." Now, a lot of people, when they read this, they believe that it was Saturday night or Saturday morning the sun was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
But in actuality, we know that the sun was going down
Right. At the end
at
of
the
the Sabbath.
end of the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
the main reason why they get days like Good Friday and 2 days from Sunday or from Friday to Sunday is because they don't understand that calendar that you just showed them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand that the day begins when the sun ends. So when it says in 28 that at the end of the Sabbath, as the sun began to go down,
Mm-hmm.
that was the end of the Sabbath going into what we know as Sunday.
Right.
But in our old mind, in our Christian mind, we think that Saturday was ending and the sun was coming up and it was Sunday, and that's why they have Easter sunrise service.
Right.
But
Right.
that's error.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
wrong.
That's out of order.
The sun was not coming up. In
No, it wasn't.
actuality, it was going down. And if we understand this verse 5, it says, in the evening and the morning were the first day. Then we would have never made that mistake with the Messiah rising on the third day. So I thought that would be interesting to bring that out as well.
Again, let's go back to Genesis 1:1. It says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the spirit of Elohim was hovering over the face of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Now, turn to John, the first chapter.
Book of John.
I stumbled across this because I like to be as accurate as I can
Okay.
when I'm dealing with this book. So it says here, it says, in the beginning was the Word. Now, when the Greeks translated this word, the word that they substituted was logos.
Mm-hmm.
Logos was spirit. In the Hebrew, the word for spirit is ruach.
Mm-hmm.
So we understand. Now we understand that this whole book was written in Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
You can debate that if you want. So we know that the Greeks looked at the Hebrew and they transposed the word logos. We know that the English looked at it and put the word here
Mm-hmm.
because that was the terminology that they used.
Right.
So now, if you would read this in proper terms, you would read it, in the beginning was the Spirit. And the Spirit was with Elohim, and the Spirit was Elohim. So let's go back to Genesis 1:1 again. And what it says what? And the Spirit of Elohim was hovering over the face of the deep.
Mm-hmm.
That makes more sense to me
Okay.
than reading it
Okay.
the way that they have it written. Why? Because now the connection is made here.
Okay.
But let's turn to the book of Revelation. Turn to Revelation, the 19th chapter.
19.
And we're going to start reading at we'll start at verse 10.
Okay. 19:10.
It says, and I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said to me, see that thou do it not. It was talking about the angel that came to John.
Mm-hmm.
It says, I am a fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yehoshua. Worship Elohim. For the testimony of Yehoshua is what? The spirit of prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
There that word is again.
That's right.
Then it says, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doeth judge and make war. Well, we know that that's talking about the Messiah or Yehoshua.
Okay.
Then it says, his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he was clothed with a vestment dipped in blood.
Mm-hmm.
And his name is called what? They have what? The Word of God, right?
Uh-huh.
But we know that that word should be Ruach, or spirit, or the spirit of Elohim.
Right.
Now,
Very good, Elder.
so that the continuity of this book never was broken.
Right.
It was only in the translation that we begin to break this up.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you understand that what this said here, that the spirit, it says in the beginning was the spirit, and the spirit was with who? Elohim.
Mm-hmm.
And the spirit was Elohim.
Okay.
Why? Because the Father, what? Is the Father of spirits.
Yes, he
Mm-hmm.
is.
Then it goes back here when it talks about the Messiah, and it says what? He had a name that no man knew but he himself.
Mm-hmm.
And his name is called what? The Spirit of Elohim.
Very good.
Could this possibly be the same spirit that hovered over the face of the deep in the beginning?
In the absolute.
Makes
You
sense.
see, the continuity is there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, never broke.
It was never broken.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in the understanding of what words are.
Right.
And that's the thing that you must do if you want to understand this book.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Because you hear people say, well, the Messiah, he couldn't have been back there with the Father. He, well, we understand something that you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we just explained something to you that if you were listening, you should have understood.
Right. Very good. That was good. There is a confirmation to that.
Mm-hmm.
What you just broke down, it was so beautiful, what you just did, Elder, in the Proverbs.
Sure.
And Solomon, or Jedediah, wrote about one of the similar things that you just broke out. And I would like to read a couple of these verses.
Okay.
This is Proverbs 8.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to begin at verse 22.
Mm-hmm.
It says, Yahweh possessed me in the beginning of his ways, before his work of old. It says, I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. It says, when there was no depths, I was brought forth. When there was no fountains abounding with water, before the fountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the deep, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he gave to the sea his decree that the water should not pass his commandments, when he appointed the fountains of the earth. Then I was by him as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the habitable part of his earth, and my delights were with the Son of Man. It says, now, therefore, hearken unto me, O you children, for blessed are they that keep my ways. Now, this is talking about the Messiah being with the Father from the beginning.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to read that to confirm what you had just brought out, Elder.
So what we're back in Genesis,
Still on the fourth day.
Yeah.
the fourth day,
Right.
14. So let me start with 14, read that again, so we can move on, because we can make some more points regarding Bereshit, or in the beginning.
Okay.
And Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, for days and for years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, which is the sun, the lesser light to rule the night, which is the moon.
Okay.
He made the stars also. And Elohim set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. 20. And Elohim said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of Hashemayim. And Elohim created great sea monsters, and every living creature that moveth, which the water brought forth abundantly, after their kind, and every winged fowl after its kind. Elohim saw that it was good. Now this is the beginning of animal life. Okay? So now we see where the fowl and the sea monster or the creatures of the sea come from.
Right. The whales.
Right. So let me finish in 22.
Okay.
And Elohim blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Now somebody else take the sixth day.
Okay, verse 24. And Elohim said, let the earth bring forth the living creatures after his kind, cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And Elohim made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And Yah said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Now, that's very interesting. In verse 26 where it says, and Elohim said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. Now we see that this is more than one person, if you will. Let us make man in our image. So that will confirm what I just read in Proverbs and what you just broke down about the Spirit. That's two, the Father and the Son, always in the beginning. Verse 27. So Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim created he him. Male and female created he them. You touch this out?
Sure. Looking here at verse 26, here when it says, then Elohim said, let us make man. We here see, even if we're just reading in the English as we have it in most of our Bibles here, it says we're using God here, and then we're looking right here in verse 26, it said, let us. Us here, even in the English, as it normally would, denotes plurality, or it denotes more than one.
Okay.
However, when we see God, that it would imply one or singular.
Right.
Now, remember, being honest, that when we first began reading, beginning in verse 1, here in the beginning, it said, you notice that I believe Elder started off reading it. Elder said, in the beginning, he said Elohim. Now, Elohim is a Hebraic word, and by the presence of the I am, Elohim, E-L-O-H-I-M, the im part indicates more than one. So we understand it to be two, but we know that also know that two is more than one. So even with the correct term in the Hebrew, the word Elohim is two, or is plural, and to verify that, when we get here in verse 26, we see that it says, then Elohim said, let us. So now we see the plurality of Elohim, and then we see the plurality of us here.
Very good.
Now, so we understand here in verse 26, it says, then Elohim said, let us make man, and then it says, in our is also plural. Okay, so we see Elohim is plural, we see us is plural here in the English, and we see our is plural also in the English. All three confirming there is a plurality here, and there is something going on. This creation is going on, and there's an assistant doing something.
Right.
Okay, all right. Now it says, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness.
Okay.
Okay, according to our likeness. That means that we, as human beings, man, we are created in the image of the Elohim,
Okay.
the Father and the Son,
Okay.
because collectively they are Elohim.
Okay. Very
The
good.
singular of Elohim is Eloah. But when it says our likeness, what does this mean? This means that we as man or men take on certain characteristics
Okay.
that the Father possess.
Right.
If we want to see characteristics, of the Father, all we have to do is look at ourselves. We do things like such, like we have emotions, we have feelings,
Right.
we have desires, we rationalize, we do all sorts of things. We laugh, we cry, we have all sorts of drives, things that we do that the Father does. So all we have to do is, when we think about the Father, what is he really like? Now, we can't tell all about him, but there's some things that we can tell, because the Scripture bears witness to that.
Right.
Since we are created in his likeness, then we can see him in us.
Right.
Okay, but then here it says, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea. Let the man have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So, 27, it says, so the Elohim created man in his own image. All right, now, I want the viewing audience to try to see something that maybe you've never kind of saw before. Now, what's going on is there is a creation going on. There is someone giving instructions. There is someone who has established a blueprint for the world to be. And there is someone who put this thing together. that someone is Yah himself,
Right.
the Father.
Very good.
For the Father is the one who orchestrated the entire creation.
Okay. Very good.
But it was the Son that was doing the actual work.
Right.
It was the Son who was receiving the instructions to put this thing together.
Yes, that's true.
Just like it was the Father that gave us the instructions, gave Israel the instructions on what to do and how to live, things that we could do, things that we should not be doing. So the Father is putting together and orchestrating this whole thing here. So Yehoshua, the Son, is actually doing the physical constructing. He's constructed everything here that we've went over already. Now, in its finality here, we see the final product is going to be a man and a woman. And Yehoshua is going to be actually doing the creating. So when it says here in verse 27, when it says, so Elohim, or so, to be specific, when Yeshua himself created the man, he created the man in his own, referring to himself, his personal image. Because it says, so Elohim created, so Yehoshua created man in his own image,
Right.
referring to what? Himself first.
Right.
Then it says, comma, semicolon here, it says, then it says, in the image of who? Yah the Father. He also, what? Created him, who? The man. So you see, what it's saying is, as Yeshua was creating this man, when he finished this product, he created this man in his image, but at the same time, he also created the man in the Father's image. And that's what it's saying right here.
Right.
This is not repeating the same thing twice
Okay.
because it's redundant.
Beautiful, beautiful.
It's saying the same thing twice, and we know it is because, let's read it. So what? So El created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. That's the same thing twice. But it's not there because it is redundant. It is there because there was one creating. And when he finished creating this man, he created him not only just in his image, but he also created him in his Father's image as well.
Right.
And I hope that I explained it good enough for you to understand.
Yeah, you did.
You know, so, and then it says simply here, it says male and female, he created them.
Right.
Then Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Thus, by where we're here, we're given the first, or is given the first command, or the first commandment to what? Be fruitful and multiply.
Right.
Okay, but we need to point out also that there are individuals that's out there that actually believe that Adam was a group of people. Have you ever heard that?
I may have heard about that one or two times in the past. However, that's not something that I've heard a lot of.
But I've heard it, and I've heard it, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've heard it rather strong and brought rather with some intensity regarding this passage. And I just want to point out that this is talking about two individuals, Adam and Hawa, or Adam and Eve.
Right.
So I just want the viewing audience that may be confused by this passage in 27. So Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim created he him. Male and female created he them.
Right.
People get that confused and actually think that that is a group of people,
Right.
or a people outside of those two individuals, meaning it was I don't want to say a multitude. I don't know to put a number on it, but
Right.
there were a number of people, and they were called Adam.
Okay.
And also, I'd like to touch on something else, too. At this point, here in the creation, we see a man
Mm-hmm.
and a woman being created.
Right. Excuse me.
At this point, also, I might add that man and woman was created on the same level.
Okay.
There was no man having dominion over woman at this time.
Okay.
The Father did not have that so. There was no man being the head, so to speak, as we find out later on. But at this point, man and woman was created on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and it's quite. And I don't know how far you want to take that,
Okay.
but I think that we could go a lot further, even in just authority, so to speak.
Right.
And even go off into even physical things, because I believe that woman at this point in time probably had the same physical capabilities as a man had.
Okay.
I believe that. But of course, we know that now that's different.
Okay.
But of course, we also know now that the authority is different.
Right.
So, but at this point in time, here, where we are right now, here, in this particular passage right here, man and woman are on even keel here.
Okay.
They're on the same page. They're on the same square.
Very good.
So they're on the level with each other at this point.
Okay. Now, I like to make two quick points. Now, the first point I like to make, I want to confirm in the Word what you said earlier about the Father orchestrating
Yes.
and the Son doing the physical work. And
Okay.
I want to give the viewing audience
Okay.
a scripture reference.
Okay.
And this is Colossians, first chapter.
Beautiful.
And I'm going to read 14 through 16. And it reads, it says, in whom we have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sin. Now, we know that's the Messiah, Yahushua.
Right.
It says, who is in the image of the invisible El, the Father,
Right.
the firstborn of every creature,
Right.
the Messiah. For by him were all things created
That's right.
that are in heaven
That's right.
and that are in the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. So I just wanted to bring that out.
Okay.
Now, point two, going back to Genesis and 27, and then when it says Elohim created he, him, male and female created he, them.
Okay.
See, this right here is so important to know the Father's name, that if we understood the Father's name and some of the characteristics of his name, then we would have no problem understanding this. Now, the Father's name is Yahweh.
Right.
And we know in the Hebrew language, there are words you would say to someone who's masculine and words you would say to someone who's feminine,
Okay.
from man to man or man to woman and so forth. Now, we have Yahweh, Yah being the masculine part of the Father's name, and Wah being the feminine.
That's true.
And we see that man and woman was made in the image of the Father.
Okay.
Now, most people don't understand the Father's name,
They don't.
and that's why they're not getting this.
Right.
But if they understood the Father's name,
Right.
they would understand this principle.
Exactly.
Yahweh, like Kawah.
Right.
That would be Eve. Eve never existed. In Hebrew, her name was Kawah, and that means the first lady or the mother of all living.
Right.
So we have Yahweh, male and female, in his likeness
Right.
and in his image. So that's why we love and knows the Father's name.
And I just like to echo off that real quick. Basically, what Brother Obiyahu is explaining to you, viewing audience, is that when Moshe or Moses was speaking to the Father on top of Mount Horeb, and Moses was sent out to the children of Israel, the Father sent him there before Moshe left to go to the people. Moshe asked the Father, well, who should I say sent me? Well, if you were there standing alongside of Moshe and heard the Father speak to Moshe, and in terms of giving him his name, you would have heard him say, I am Ehaya Asher Ehawa. Ehaya Asher Ehawa. Now, Ehaya is the masculine of the Father's name, like Obiahu just explained to you. And then he said, Ehaya Asher Ehawa. The Hawa is the feminine side.
Very good.
So you have the Haya and Hawa. Together you have Yahweh. That is where we get what we call, or you see people write down, or you people say the Holy Tetragrammaton, which is the 4 letters. Okay, tetra meaning 4, gramma meaning word. 4 letters of a word, of a name, and that is the Father's name: a Yod, a He, a Wah, and a He. And since there are no vowels in Hebrew, we add the vowels so that we as English-speaking people can pronounce his name. So when we have the Yod, the He, the Wah, and the He, adding the vowels, A's, 2 A's, we say Yahweh. And that is masculine and that is feminine. And so I just wanted to say that,
Very good.
just to give them a better insight on that.
Very good. You want to keep going? Verse 28, Kazakiel?
Sure. Verse 28. 1 and 28. And Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. That's another aspect of being in the image of the Father, because man was then given dominion and the ability to create. Let me put it like this. Man has the ability with his hands to create or to destroy. Okay? So, when you are not aligned with the Father's word, you have no instruction. You don't understand your purpose.
Right.
You will basically go outside of the parameters that were set for man.
Okay.
See, now, what we're reading right here, we're still in the Father's design.
Okay. Very good.
The design in which he set forth for man and woman. But as we read further on, you will see that man stepped outside the Father's design, which gave way to Satan's design.
Right.
But that's in another show. But right now we're going to stay within the guidelines of what we just read, where here it says, and Elohim said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, meaning to produce children. Okay? And that's one of the processes that even the angels envy. Okay? That we had the ability to reproduce and to produce. Okay? So the Father made us, gave us a multidimensional existence. Okay? Because we had the ability to create, to destroy, have dominion to rule, and to reproduce. Okay? And we were made in his image. Okay. It says, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, or the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. And Elohim said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed, which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree, and which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for food. So basically, in order for you, okay, you were eating and you were eating something that would reproduce. The seed would reproduce, meaning it was a part of the original creation. Like in the last segment, Ak was talking about how we were dealing with these hybrid fruit.
Right.
And the seedless grapes, seedless this, seedless that.
Right.
That's not a part of this creation that we're talking about.
Right.
That is hybrid, or
Right.
that is something that was created from splicing.
Genetically altered.
Right, genetically altered fruit. Okay,
Clone it.
right.
All that stuff.
30. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for food, and it was so.
Very good.
And Elohim saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning was the 6th day.
Right.
So, I believe what that's saying is that when we look at the creation, but in the creation, man was given a perfect diet. When I say a perfect diet,
Right.
man was given a diet of foods that contain seeds, but only foods that contain seeds. So we were vegetarians.
Right.
So that means by natural creation,
Right.
we are vegetarians.
Right.
So in the beginning, we had a perfect diet because we were perfect.
Correct.
Man was perfect because he had no sin. Man had not sinned yet. Man had a perfect diet.
Right.
But man was only eating greenery.
Right.
He was only eating the fruit from the ground.
Right.
Was not eating meat. So that was our diet.
Right.
And the greenery that did not possess seeds was for who? For the beasts of the field.
Right.
That was what they were supposed to eat.
Right.
So they ate the greenery with no seeds. We ate the greenery with seeds.
Very good. Way to bring that out. Look at verse 28 again. And it says, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, and every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Now, we lost that dominion after Adam sinned. Well, what I mean is, man had dominion or control over animals, but what happened when Adam sinned, we lost it, and we're really not going to get it back until the Messiah returns. Now, I want to read something in Isaiah that confirms that. That's something that take a whole lot of time,
Yeah.
and I just want to give a quick overview. Now, go to Isaiah 11, and I'm just going to read two scriptures, 8 and 9. And it says, and the suckling child shall play on the hole of a snake, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den. They shall not hurt nor destroy all in my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of Yah as the waters cover the sea. Now, we know that a child couldn't play with a snake today. And we know that the lion trainer, his lion attacked him. It ate him up.
Yeah.
So we know we lost that dominion. You walk in somebody's yard and they got a dog in there, more than likely a dog will bite you.
Yeah.
So man has lost it. I just wanted to point out to the viewing audience where it says have dominion. Now we know we have animal trainers and things of that nature, but they got to browbeat them. They got to beat them or train them in a way to get them to obey them. But back then, the Father just gave us that permission, have dominion over the animals. And we're going to get that back, we see here in 11, when the Messiah returns. So I just wanted to just point that out to the viewing audience.
Yeah. I think a large part of that word dominion, a large part of that is control.
Right.
Or another word I was about to bring out, not to take anything from what you were saying,
Yeah.
but a large part of that word is fear. See, animals still fear man,
Right.
okay?
Right.
Because an animal will see a man And a lot of times an animal will attack because of that fear of man.
Right. Very good.
So for the most part, I understand what you're talking about, because we've probably never seen how Adam, because Adam, he named the animals.
Right.
They all walked
Right.
up to Adam and he named them.
Right.
And
Very good.
the animals
Submissive.
were somewhat, because see, you gotta understand, there was no sin in the garden.
Right.
So therefore the animal had no reason to act out or to attack. Okay, so the animals were somewhat would coincide with man.
Now, this is very important. You know, Eliyahu, you brought up a very good point, a very excellent point. To expound on the word dominion is very important, because it means a lot more than what we think, viewing audience.
Okay.
First of all, I just mentioned that a lot of what you just brought out, Obiyahu, in that word dominion is that word control. You see, control.
Okay.
Now, looking at what Kazakiel just brought up, he brought up something very interesting also. He talked about fear, because you see, at this point where we are in reading about the creation, there is no fear of man. There was no fear of man. When the beasts of the field were created, they did not have any fear of man.
No.
Now, who remembers when fear of man came into animals?
That's a good question.
The answer to that question is the fear of man first became, a part of an animal's nature was when Noah set foot off of the ark. When Noah stepped off of the ark, the Father struck fear in animals of man. Read it, it's there.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's there.
Because
It's
they
there.
had to come to Noah
Exactly.
to get on the ark.
That's right. And they had no problem. But after that happened, because man had sinned so bad, and sin is the key there again, because so much changed, viewing audience, when we sinned.
Right.
That fear, that control, that all changed. Also, let's point out something else that changed, that was very important, and what a lot of people, of course, don't know, is that before man sinned, before Adam and for Hawa or Eve sinned, did you know, viewing audience, that the animals could speak? They could talk, just like we're talking. We're communicating here. There was communication between man and animals. But when man sinned, what happened, Elder?
Hey, he lost it.
They lost their
Everything.
speech. Animals lost their speech. The only animal that I know today that can speak, still speak, is a parrot.
Parrot. That's it.
But you see, that was no joke when the serpent was speaking to Eve, because that was an actual animal. We know that Satan was a part of that, but that wasn't Satan. Not physically. Satan wasn't there in a physical sense.
He's an angel.
Satan's a spirit.
Right. He's
Right.
a spirit.
That was an actual serpent, which was a very beautiful animal. Beautiful to look at. And that animal what? And that animal, that serpent, walked. He walked. He had legs that he walked on. Because if you remember, after what happened, then he lost his ability to walk after the Father had laid out judgment on this serpent. Not Satan, folks. The Father didn't pass judgment on Satan. It was the what? It was the serpent he passed judgment on. And he caused the serpent to crawl on his belly for the rest of his life, as well as all the other of his offspring. So look at how much changed after man sinned, and look at how much was a part of that word you call, Obiyahu, dominion. Look at how much was a part of that. All of those things. Look at all that.
Very good. Beautiful. Moving on, chapter 2, verse 1. It says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. And on the seventh day, Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it,
Shabbat Elder.
because
Yeah.
that in it he had rested from all his work which Elohim created and made. Now, we won't touch the
Shabbat.
Sabbath? We won't touch the Sabbath, Elder?
Well, we know.
We love to talk about this.
Well, it's just as I said before. The Sabbath, or the Shabbat, or the seventh day in which the Father ceased all his work. Notice it said, and he sanctified it,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
meaning to set it aside.
That's right.
You hear people today talking
Set it
about they're
apart.
sanctified and this, that, and the other. Well, my question to them is, since you're so sanctified and you know that the Father sanctified the seventh day, why are you being disobedient?
Mm-hmm.
And don't tell me about Sunday is the Christian day and Saturday is the Jewish day or the Hebrew day. There's no such
That's
thing
childish.
as that. Because at the time that the Father sanctified the seventh day, there was no such thing. Shall I say that again? There was no such thing as what? Christian, Hebrew, or anything else.
Or even Israel.
Right.
There was no such thing as even Israel.
None of
The
that.
Mosaic law, none of that.
None of that. None of that existed. The Shabbat was there.
Very good.
And if you look at the Father's feast days, it's so important to him. It's his first feast day. Turn to Leviticus 23 and you'll read it for yourself and you'll see. And even in what you know to be the Ten Commandments, it's there.
Beautiful.
So evidently, it's very important to the Father.
Absolutely.
You know, and for you to violate it the way that you do and to say that you love him,
That's right.
something is wrong.
He said you're a liar and the truth is not in you
Correct.
Right.
if you don't keep his commandments.
No,
Sabbath never changed.
it never did.
It never changed.